Bom, boa tarde a todos e a todas. Bem-vindos a mais um seminário do Grupo de Dinâmica Orbital e Planetologia. Hoje a gente tem o prazer aqui de ter um convidado do exterior, o professor Elipe. Então, a partir de agora, eu vou fazer a apresentação em inglês, ok? So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our seminars of the Group of Orbital Dynamics and Planetology. And today we have the pleasure to have here Professor Antonio Elipe. Does not need actually an introduction. It's a well-known, renowned celestial mechanician. So, and he's going to talk to us about the families of periodic orbits in the circular restricted three-body problem. So, please.
Thank you very much. Well, the topic of the talk will be the families of periodic orbits, and this is a work that has been written in collaboration with my colleagues Alberto Abad, Mercedes Arribas, and Manuel Palacios, and that has been published at the beginning of the year in the Celestial Mechanics and Dynamical Astronomy. Perhaps the restricted body problem is the problem that has attracted more work along the history from the point of view of the celestial mechanics. Attached to it, we find names like Euler, Lagrange, Laplace, Jacobi, Poincare, Pidcoff, and many others. Everyone that has been something in celestial mechanics has been working on the restricted three-body problem. It's similar to the topic of the previous days, the Kepler equation. But for more than 400 years, still we are working in this apparently simple problem. And as a part of the restricted three-body problem, one item is the classification of periodic orbits. According to Poincare, in his book of the Mechanics Celeste, appeared that this kind of solution are really, he called that precious, marvelous, because this is the only gate where we can enter to know something that is so far unknown in a problem. So this is the only way to discover a little bit about what is happening in the problem. And also for relating with periodic orbits, we still have all the names in celestial mechanics like Strömgren, Brown, Raff, Moulton, Hill, Whittaker, Lyapunov, Arnestov, Brouwer, Enon, Bruno, Sevigny, Depree, Bruch, Erard, or Archidimetrou, just to mention a bit. There are many more that have been working on that. So I recommend to read the book of Sevigny, Theory of Orbits, published in 1967, or the other of Michel Enon, Generating Families in this problem. There you will find almost everyone that had been working on the topics of celestial mechanics, in periodic orbits in the restricted three-body problem. And usually the periodic orbits are not as isolated, but they belong to families. So it's well known that in autonomous Hamiltonian system, periodic orbits and a family is represented by one parameter continuous curve. That means the evolution of the family is just points on a curve that usually depends on one parameter in the conditions. And also in words of Depree, natural families actually constitute the skeleton of the stable domains of a dynamic system. So this is why this subject is not of interest only in celestial mechanics, but also in whatever dynamical systems in which you are thinking of. But concerning our problem, as I mentioned, this is a wonderful book where contains a lot of families, but one of the pioneer work is due to Strömgren, that was the director of the Astronomical Observatory in Copenhagen, and he studied mostly for the parameter mu equal 0.5. That means that the two maxes, I will explain later on, but the two maxes are equal. It was in the 1933 and produced a lot of, with his collaborators in the observatory, of memoirs containing a lot of graphics, a lot of orbits, a lot of families, with no computer at that time. That was done only with the classical method that consisted mainly in pen, paper, and logarithm table. Nothing more. Well, this problem in which the two masses are equal, as a matter of fact, is known as the Copenhagen problem because of the work that they did. And he made a complete classification of the problem and obtained 22 families, and he named with the alphabet letters. But how the transition from one family to another, how do they look like these families, or the orbits of these families? Also, what happens if instead of having 0.5, we have a different parameter less than 0.5? And this is the purpose of this work. Just briefly, let me remind you about the problem. The problem consists in two primaries, P1 and P2, with two different, in principle, different masses, but also they may be equal, as happened before. And P2 describes a Keplerian circular orbit around the other point. So far is a pure Keplerian circular problem, of two problem. And then we add a third body, and in books appear infinitesimal mass, or even in some cases appear with mass equal to 0. I remember what I was studying that creates me a lot of confusion, because if you take that the mass is 0, there is no dynamics at all. So what does it mean that the mass is 0? That, in my opinion, a wrong expression, and it's better to use infinitesimal mass. It has a mass so small with respect to the other that it doesn't affect the motion of the other. So this is the meaning of the word restricted in this context, and also the infinitesimal mass. There is other possibility for the restricted that the third body, as a matter of fact, has mass, and in some cases even compare it with the other, but is so far from the other that the influence is very, very small. So this will be another scenario for the restricted three-body problem. But here we will deal only with infinitesimal mass. So we can choose the unit. So if we choose as unit the length equal to 1, that the sum of the masses are equal to 1, and that the universal gravitation constant equal to 1, that means length, mass, and time. We usually call the second mass equal to mu, that belongs to 0.1/2, and this is the so-called parameter. And also it's convenient, since these two bodies are making a circle one around the other, to formulate the problem not in a fixed or inertial frame, but in a rotating frame. And in this rotating frame, that points, the origin is in the center of masses, but points only to the P2. The coordinates of the two principal bodies, the primaries, are constant, and these are, and also the angular rotation of the rotating frame is equal to 1, and things are, but we have to add another complexity because of the rotating frame. Well, This is the P1, P2. This will be the center of mass of P1, P2, and the x-axis is always pointing through P2, and this will be the vertical, and this is rotating, okay? Later we will be back to this picture. And the penalty that we have to pay for using the rotating frame is that appear the Coriolis force and other terms. So the equation of motion is the motion is planar, is in this way. Here will be appear omega, but with our chosen unit, this is equal to 1. And then we define as an effective potential that is the Newtonian potential plus this term due to the rotation. And R1 and R2 is the difference between the P1 to the P and P2 to the P. This then the energy is not conserved in this problem because appear the time. But when we formulate the problem in the rotating frame, there is another constant that is the Jacobian constant, and it's very easy to obtain. If we multiply that by x dot and this by y dot, and we add and integrate, we obtain this expression that is known as the Jacobian constant. Okay, we will use of this constant along the talk. When we have a system of differential equations, the first idea is just to find any particular solutions, and these particular solutions are the equilibria. We put the equation equal to 0, the same here, and we solve, and it's well known that the problem have 5 equilibria, 3 collinears and 4 L4 and L5 on the vertex of a triangle. And in the graphic of before, we have here L1, L2, L3. The notation has changed recently because of the use in astrodynamics, and classical books, they mention like L1, L2, and L3. Here we use the notation L1, L2, and L3. The 3 are on a line, so this is why they are called the collinear points. And also there is L4 and L5 on the vertex of this equilateral triangle, and by symmetry, we have the other L5. So far everything is known. And also it's important that to mention that these are unstable, but the equilateral may be stable for mu less than this critical value, 0.038. This is something good for us because in the case of the Earth and Moon, where in the stability case, or in the case of the Sun and Jupiter, we are also in stability. So we are concerned only about the symmetric periodic orbits. And because of the symmetry, if we change t by minus t, y by minus y, and y dot by x dot by minus x dot, we have exactly the same solution. So we restrict only for the symmetric periodic orbits. And if we have one orbit with 2 orthogonal crossing, that would be asymmetric. So let's take initial conditions. Let's see, we plot with along the x-axis, but with orthogonal velocity. Okay. So if after certain instant of time, strange things, but suddenly when cross again the x-axis goes either in that direction, that means with orthogonally to the x-axis, this will be a symmetric periodic orbit. And the period will be twice from going from here to here. So this is the idea of the symmetric periodic orbits. So our initial conditions will be that the coordinate y at a half period will be 0, and the coordinate x dot at half a period will be also 0. So we only need these two conditions for x0 and y dot 0, because y0 will be 0 and x dot 0 will be 0. But instead of using x and y dot, usually are represented in terms of the Jacobian constant. Just from the expression of the Jacobian constant, for x dot we have equivalent Jacobian constant for this value. Okay, so we will plot in this plane x dot and c0. When we find a periodic orbit, we plot a point. We find another periodic orbit, plot another point, and so on. Okay, so this will be the map of the plane of our initial conditions for periodic orbits. And we will follow exactly the same method given by Strömgren, that is called the grid search method, but essentially consists in this plane of x and c and Jacobian constant. We make a grid. And then we start with two consecutive points for a certain c, xy and xy plus 1. So this will be two initial conditions, this and this. So we integrate the motion until the solutions cross the x-axis. So if this product is negative, means by means of the Bolzano theorem that there is a cross, there is a root between these 2 points. So we have to solve and find the x dot star, the y star, that will correspond for the initial condition of the periodic orbit. Okay? And this is. So we have to approach between these 2 points until we have this one by a numerical method, classical. So we take the next will be xy plus 1 and xy plus 2, and try. If there is a periodic orbit, we plot. There is no periodic orbit, we jump to the next one, and so on. And once we fill all points on this row, we jump to the next one. We started with ck, so now we pass to ck plus 1 and repeat the procedure and so on until we cover the complete grid. See that this is very methodic, and there is no need to have small parameters that happens with other methods for finding periodic orbits, for instance, the continuous propagation of periodic orbits. But in this case, it's not. It's just it's hard, but it's easy to program that and make the complete span of the grid in order to not forget any periodic orbit. So now that we have a tool to find periodic orbits and to put the families, we thought about the classification, because remember that the classification of Strömgren that has been followed later on for many years consists in the numbers of the alphabet, the letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and so on. But does not provide much information. They say this orbit belongs to the family F. How are these orbits? So we try to make a classification more intuitive. So first, we made a distinction between direct or retrograde orbits. So we put capital D for direct and capital R for retrograde orbits. What we consider that an orbit is direct when we start from when the orbit goes in the sense of counterclockwise. We start here and makes that. So that will be a direct. A retrograde, it goes clockwise. Okay? And also we make the classification, we introduce which of these 7 points are inside the orbit. And for instance, if we have R P1, L1, P2, that means that the orbit is retrograde, and inside the orbit are the points P1, the primary, L1, the Lagrangian point, and P2. And also because of the symmetry, if one orbit contains L4, also contains L5. So in order to economize the notation, when one orbit surrounds L4, we say the T for triangular instead of writing L4, L5. Okay? This is the notation. And here I present some of the orbits. For instance, here, start from here and goes in that direction. So there will be a retrograde orbit. Contains the blue dots are the primaries and the red are the equilibria. So it contains L1, L2, and the two triangular. So this will be retrograde L1, P2, L2, and T. Okay? This one also is retrograde and contains only the point L2. So there will be capital R, L2. This one, all of them are retrograde. Are retrograde and contains L1 and the triangular point. So will be retrograde L1 and T. This is direct orbit. Start from here and the next cut is here. So it will be a direct that contains L1 and the triangle, and P1 and P2, that it's hard to see, but believe that this is that. This one only contains one primary, and so on. Okay? So, given that the orbit is of this size, you already know what, how is the orbit. It's too late. Well, let's. How much time do I have? No, how time? How long? Half an hour rest? Okay. So now we pass to one special class of periodic orbits that are the heteroclinic orbits. For that, we need the concept of a stable and unstable manifold on the triangular equilibrium points. So we will say that this is the stable manifold for all points in which the limit, when t tends to infinity, the flow goes to this point. Remember that when they are stable, this is possible. It takes an infinity time to reach the point, okay? And the same, when it abandons and goes to the other, this will be the unstable manifold. So, each element of the intersection of the unstable to L4 and the stable for L5, this will an heteroclinic orbit that we call U. And similar, we switch this unstable by stable, unstable by unstable. We have another heteroclinic orbit that we call X. Has nothing to do with the stable or unstable character. The U we fish in L4, the one that is on the top, and the U means that leaves the U L4 and go to the other. So thinking always in the L4, the top. And the other, the S means that goes to L4. Okay? This goes out of the L4 to L5, and this goes from L5 to L4. Okay, so these are the heteroclinic orbits. Well, we know that these 2 points from mu greater than the critical value are unstable. So we can write the variational equations in a neighborhood of these points, and this is the solution. And we may choose these quantities that will be the constant of integration in such a way that the orbit will be stable or belongs to one stable or unstable. For instance, if these two are 0, this term cancel, and we have E2 minus lambda. So when t goes to infinity, this approach tends to 0. Okay. So by choosing these quantities, it's possible to have the manifolds. We don't enter into details, but we follow the work by Gerard Gomez that was published many years ago, and is quite effective. Okay, so by means of this method, we start for one initial conditions that will be a small circle around L4, just making a circle of this type. We propagate to compute the manifold, and when y is equal 0, we plot the curves x dot. Okay, it's rather complicated for both for the stable and for the unstable. So these are in the plane x dot. And when this curve crosses the x-axis, this corresponds to heteroclinic. For instance, here are this corresponds for the stable and this for the unstable manifold. And this is x and this is x dot. Okay? The axes are x dot. Position, the coordinate position and the coordinate x of the velocity. And we fish in this point, the intersection along the x-axis, here, here, and here. So we have 4 points that belongs to the heteroclinic orbits. S1, S2, S3, S4. What happens in the unstable manifold? This curve doesn't cut the x dot. Here we have one cut. Here we have another cut, and here we have another cut. So we take this point, the one, the second, and the third. And this will be the heteroclinic, the initial condition for heteroclinic orbits. And these are the orbits. For the unstable, remember that in the unstable case we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 heteroclinic orbits. Here. And for the left, from the right, we have the unstable. There were only 3 points, so we have 3 heteroclinic orbits. And orbits that goes from L5 to L4 in this aspect, okay? The blue, the green, and the black. And here are from L4 to L5. So this will be leaving this point to reach this other in infinity time, okay, because are hyperbolic, heteroclinic. And how do we distinguish between these four orbits or between these three orbits? Well, since this belongs to the X reaching from L5 until L4, so we put S. But we split in three regions: left, central part, and right part. Okay, and here are the primaries. So we have that this is so in this area they are, let me in the other, okay. You see that here we have one, but outside the primaries, the one primary will be here, another primary here. So this is to the left. And in the central part, there are only 2 points. And this one belongs to the right part. So here we have 1, here 2, here 1. So that corresponds to the one that is to the left. These two are in the central part, to the points that were in the central part, and this is the one that was into the right. And in this case, similar. Okay, here we have here no intersection, but here we have one, another one that are in the central part, and this is on the right. So we call these heteroclinic orbits central 1, central 2, and the one to the left. Okay, in this way, putting where they are located intersections, we are able to classify the heteroclinic orbits. So we did for all the intervals from 0 to 0.5, and we obtained that in one interval from there were this type of orbits, and for the stable and the unstable, or for the stable character and unstable. Another interval where there are different type number of heteroclinic orbits, and so on. So we were able to classify to determine in which intervals we will find this type of heteroclinic orbits, and also of what type. Okay, that so far was being done only for the first 4.5, and in the works of J.R. Gomez and colleagues, they put some examples, but not a complete classification of all the evolution of the parameter. Well, more examples of the evolution. And more things about the rest of the orbits. So in the characteristic orbits, each point corresponds to one orbit. I mean, the characteristic curve of the family. So each point of the family represents an orbit, the initial conditions of the orbit. And the direction of the rotation does not change. Also, at times may surround one point, another, and the same family may surround different points. Okay, but they belong to the same family, so we need to characterize that. And this is the way that we proceed. If we don't put in this bracket nothing, they mean that all orbits behave equal. If we start here, that means that have the same origin but may change, and from here that have different origin and different changes and may change in between. Let's see some example. For instance, we have some characteristic curves. So this belongs to the case 0.5, the Copenhagen problem. So all these families, O1, O2, O3, O4, belongs to the same family. These are periodic orbits belonging to the same family. Okay? And start in O4. O4 is, all of them are direct, no, in this case are retrograde orbits. And the first contains only the point P1. So the origin is here, P1. But then move to another that contains L3 and L2. L3 and L2. But the next one already contains, the degree 1 contains the triangular points, so points. And the last one does not contain anymore. So this is the evolution of the family. Starting P1 are retrograde family orbits, and the evolution is that we will have orbits here, and then jump to containing L3 and L1, and then another jump and contains these three. This one, these are direct orbits that belongs, but this belongs to the notation of Strömgren to family H, and this one to the family G. So that means that are direct, and all of them contains only one point, that is the P2, I think. This is wrong. This will be P2, okay? The P1, P2. And since there is no change from one family to another concerning the points that are englobed, we put just a blank bracket. And this is more complicated, and we'll explain later, okay? But this aspect, I think, is clear what is the evolution of the orbits along the family. While if we have that they belong only to family H, this is not to say more. This, yes, for see that the orbits make a kind of loop around the triangular points, okay? And this is important. And this is the origin of the asymptotic points. And also they are called spiral points because we see that the family makes a kind of spiral along these points. An asymptotic point is characterized by only the two coordinates, the x and the c. And xa represent the value where the heteroclinic orbits cut the OX, the one that we put, we saw in the previous. And C is just the evaluation of the Jacobian constant in the triangular point value of X. So let's look at the families. These are the family in terminology of Copenhagen group. This is the family S, the family R, the family O. But what happens is that all of them tends to one point that is none of the triangular, nor just a point in the phase space. And the same happens here. This is why they are called spiral points or asymptotic points. And this graphic, that is the one that of the previous transparency, belongs, all these families belongs to curves, periodic orbits belongs to this family. Okay? This family ends in orbit O1, one, and it's formed by the central part, the first and this area, and the other unstable to the right, and ends in the other orbit, in the O3, that is made by the similar to that. Okay, but all the orbits contains L1, P2, L2, and L4, L5. So all the orbits are of this type, are orbit retrograded, and we see how they evolve. So start in here and goes to here. So what happens in the middle will be the blue lines, okay? And what appears here will be asymptotically to this. So this is rather complicated. It's not easy to see, but at least we put in that, we see that all the orbits have this behavior, and also because go from asymptotic point to another asymptotic point, this is the transition that they have. Otherwise, the only thing is that they belong to family X, but you have no idea on how are the orbits of the family X. While putting in this aspect, you have an idea on how they behave. Well, we did for the Copenhagen problem, as I mentioned before, for mu equal 0.5, and obtained the 22 families that are represented here. And also we see the evolution. This corresponds to the previous one. And this is a zoom of this. This is a zoom of this area. This of this one, and this of this one. And we see that the dynamics is very, very complicated around this point. For the rest are normal orbits. So these families are quite normal, as the previous, as I mentioned at the beginning. And for that, we made our classification, and we recovered all the families that were given by Strongen or by Henon. So once we have for the mu equal 0.5, we proceed from 0.5 until the value to 0. And we still have the same intervals where the behavior will be similar in this, and for values of mu in this other interval, or values of mu here, values of mu here. So that would be small deformations, but very similar, the behavior and the number of families. Well, for instance, correspond to 0.49, close to 0.5. We see how the looks very similar. But all these families, if we do for a different value, even close, they will be completely different. For instance, this family, this corresponds to 0.42, this 4.1, and this 4.30. And we see that this family that was a continuous line, and this other that start here, still the behavior is different. Here the family was this, and now the family is this. This family was like that, and now the family is like that. Okay? And very close, 0.44, 0.41. But when we put 0.30, it's more different even, because all these close and completely different. Okay, so for very, very small difference of values of the parameter, the families are different, very sensitive. Also, one kind of orbits that are interesting is what are called horseshoe orbits. They are more beautiful orbits that they start here and making like that and go down, like the Horsus. But essentially are the same. This is 4.5. And this for one value very, very small, 0.08, and you still are all the same because they contains the triangular points plus L3, all these orbits, okay? Will be, they may change things a lot, or making like a loop around that, or for instance, even this aspect, but all are of the same category of Horsus. And we end the work with two problems that have specific values of mu that have application in astrodynamics, in mission, space missions. For instance, what happens in the case of the system Earth-Moon. This is the value for this case, and this is the map of all the families of periodic orbits. Okay. These are magnification of these areas, and just we put some in red, another in blue, another in green. And also we did the same for the case of Sun Jupiter, that the value is much smaller, also one of them. And also we put the same colors for specific orbits of the families in order to see the difference between the same orbits for the same family, but depending on the value of mu. The first row is for the lunar case, and the second for the Jupiter case, and belong to the same colors that we plot in the previous graphic, and we see that looks very similar. These are Horsus orbit, but this approach much more to the primaries, this than this, okay? But the behavior is the same. Still, they are making very nice loops around that. Similar here, but here with only two loops, and here are loops always. This will the family, and this is the equivalent for Jupiter, and this orbit on the same family that this is for the Earth and for the Moon, and this for Jupiter. Okay, are similar. They look different, but have the same characteristics because belong to the same family with different values of the parameter. Okay, so yes, conclusions is that this work we presented a complete classification in the circular restricted T-body problem, similar to the one made by Stronger. We obtained the same families that are Stronger, but we did for all the values of the parameter. And also we introduced a classification that, in our opinion, helps a lot to have idea on how is the behavior of the orbits. And also, this is a very hot topic, the asymptotic orbits, that creates a lot of problems. In our opinion, we make a nice work we did, so we have to brag about that. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, now we are open for questions. Questions, comments? What happened in the case of the resonant orbs? Did you find them too, or are they removed from this sequence? Okay, okay. And the evolution of the families has changed the mass. There are, for instance, certain kind of families that does not appear depending on the mass ratio.
Yes, it's true. For instance, let me go. Depending on the this no represent the intervals. Here, you see? In this interval, that is from 0.47 to 0.5, we have this is only on the heteroclinic, but happens the same with the other families. Okay, we see that we have 4 types of orbits, all the L5 to L4, and 4 times for L4 but L5. But in this interval, we have only 2, and different because there is no from the central part, and here there is no from the left. So depending on the interval, we have different families. Some of the families are not present in one interval, and others are present in another. So also this is interesting to know because, for instance, it's an application of missions or for asteroids or things like that. There have no sense to look for some orbits because according in which interval the parameter is, we know that this kind of orbits for this value no longer exist. Okay, so this will help in making studies of perspective.
Okay.
There's one question here in the Google Meet call, and Marilena, she asked, could the grid search algorithm be adapted to find the asymmetric periodic orbits?
With this method of the grid search, the only orbits that we detect are the periodic orbits, because our planet, as they cross orthogonally the X dot. So since cross orthogonally and go back orthogonally, must be symmetric. So it's only for symmetric orbits. To have non-symmetric orbit, we have to apply different methods. For instance, the propagation, the analytical continuation, like using the method of the Pryth and Henrard or whatever. But with this, we have the complete map, but only for symmetric periodic orbits.
Any other question? Another? Okay. You didn't say anything about the stability of these orbs, did you? Or the single families, for instance?
No, nothing. We say nothing about the stability.
Okay.
To have the stability is just a matter of checking the ways and extra work. You have the make the integration along the orbit and compute what is called the trace of the matrix, and if the determinant is less than 2, will be stable or unstable. But so far, this is only how are if I direct or retrograde, but not about the stability.
No, it's a huge work.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to classify them, to see. That would be, I think, more interesting, especially for space missions, if you find, for instance, regions kind of trajectories that are more stable or more unstable would be.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Yeah.
But I think that to have that in this context is rather complicated. I think it's easier one that you would have the orbit that you are interested in. Is better to make the analysis of the stability for this, precisely for this type of orbits, that not in general.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But
yeah,
maybe we do.
There are always more work to do.
Fortunately.
Yeah, good. Okay. So, any question? Any further comments? No. So let's thank again, Dr. Professor.
Thank you.